Oh dear. That's a good start. The music is playing up again, even though I've restarted the system. Good morning, everyone. I hope that goes away in the fullness of time. Good morning to Gary Muirhead. Good morning also to Mick Norton and to Chris Ford as well. And to our friend Wolfie over in the States. If that doesn't stop in a second, it has stopped. Apparently, I need to restart the restart. But good morning. Good morning. How the devil are you doing this fun day? I do need to ask our friend, Wolfover69 over in the States, were you in the line of the solar eclipse yesterday? Did you get to see it? From what I saw on the TV, kind of a damp squib, to be perfectly honest. I know it's a major thing. I have to admit, the last time we had one here in the UK, missed it completely. I was sat there waiting for it to happen, middle of the day. The phone rang. I answered the phone. By the time I'd come off the phone, it was all over and done. And our friend Wolfie says, it's too cloudy to see anything. Such is life. I hope you're all fit and well today. Stand by your beds, people. Apparently, Pat Bullcock is in the house. Good morning to Pat, if he is here. I can't see him, but apparently you people can. So good morning, Pat. Thank you for joining us. I do hope you're all fit and well, because we do have another packed show in store for you, along with the usual mystery machine and the question of the day nonsense. Very quickly, though, if you were here yesterday, if you were here, I just did line something up. If you were here yesterday, you might recall I was talking about a new rule change within the National Federation of Demolition Contractors. That rule forbids individuals that are not paid on a PAYE basis to stand for the role of an NFDC officer. I now have a pretty good idea who this was aimed at, but I will keep my powder dry just in case. But I was thinking about this overnight. Just over a year ago, 10 NFDC member companies were fined almost £60 million for their part in a price-fixing scandal that brought the Federation and the entire industry into disrepute. The NFDC did nothing. There were no bans, no reprimands. In fact, there were no sanctions whatsoever. And yet now, an individual who might be paid legitimately via a means other than PAYE can be ostracised. We have an expression for that.
Things that make you go,
Things that make you go, indeed. Yes, absolutely. Mark Whiting has just joined us as well. Good morning, Mark. Thank you very much indeed for being here. Apparently, Pat is still in the audience, but I can't actually see him, so we'll press on. But Pat, if you'd care to join us, please feel free. Without further ado, I'm going to roll the intro, post the question of the day, if I remember, and we'll get the show on the road. Here we go. Definitely trying to do my level best to catch up with all of the people that have joined us, including, I've just spotted another one, which is Andy Dove. Morning, Andy. Thank you very much indeed for being here. Steve Williamson has joined us as well, so let me press his button, though not in the biblical sense, obviously. It is Tuesday, the 9th of April. Welcome to the Breakfast Show. I am your host, Mark Anthony, the Walrus of Demolition. In today's show, how Caterpillar builds durability into its products. Who wouldn't want a blade buddy? Well, I certainly would. How a Liebherr customer is cutting to the chase, and the case of the disappearing French bridge. Plus, Dynapac gets set to shake things up at Intermat 2024. But before we get to all of that, we do have the small matter of today's mystery machine. So, let me do this. Right, mystery machine. Break out your glasses, break out your magnifying glasses as well, because today is a good one. Let's throw it up on the screen. This is what you have to work with. That's our mystery machine for today. And it may become clear as we go along. There is There is actually two possible answers on this one, but that will become clear when we get to it. So has anybody got any guesses on what that might be? Do you know what type of machine it might be? Do you know a make, a model? Anything would be welcome. And good morning to Ken Hatcher, who has just arrived in the midst of the weather. We've got the weather here as well. Woke up this morning, it looked absolutely fine. Took the dogs out, soaking wet. Yeah, absolutely. Lovely. April showers and all. I'm going to take that away because we do need to crack on. So let me very quickly, I know we've already had some answers through on this, but let me very quickly remind you of our question of the day. Yeah, our question of the day today really could not be any simpler. It is simply this: do you prefer sweet or savoury foods? Personally, setting aside my diabetes and the constant threat of heart attack, I'd go sweet all day long. Happily swap most meals for a bar of chocolate, and even some of the savoury food that I eat has a hint of sweetness. Do love me a bit of sweet and sour chicken. But what about you? Do you have a sweet tooth, or are you more of a savoury character? I know there's a few unsavoury characters in the audience, but if you are a savoury, let me know. And I do need to quickly salute Marco Larini. The Willy Wonka of construction equipment is watching via Instagram. Marco Larini, I tip my hat to you, sir, and good morning. And Barnmore Demolition have just joined us over on Instagram as well. So good morning to you all. Let's have a look. Now, I do need to throw this up on the screen very quickly. We will press on in a moment. Gary Muirhead has come in with the first guess. He has suggested it may be a Komatsu WA380 wheel loader. It is not. And Ken Hatcher says, is it an Ackerman? It is not an Ackerman, but I may save that one for some point in the future. That would be a good one to bring in. Let me show you just a smidgen more. There you are. Doesn't help at all, I don't suppose, but that's what you've got to work with today. That is our mystery machine, and we'll come back to that immediately after we've done a bit of this. Just had a comment here. Steve Williamson says, is our mystery machine a scraper? No, it is not. It's a good guess, but it is not right, I'm afraid. In actual fact, it is so not right, I think we do need to try and make use of our sound effects. I'm hoping these are going to play and not get stuck like the earlier music. Yeah, no correct guesses yet. But keep the guesses coming in. Just quickly flash it up for you. There you are. That's what you've got to work with. Now, yesterday we showed you precisely what goes into the manufacture of Kobelco excavators, the precision manufacturing, the heavy steel. Well, to give you an opportunity to compare and contrast, we're about to do the same. Only this time we're going behind the scenes at the mighty Caterpillar. I've actually been to one of those factories, the one over in France, Grenoble. Changed a lot since I went there. I guess you don't get to be global leader by standing still. The Marco Lorini fan club is in full effect. It's Gary Muirhead saying, "Good morning, Marco." Yeah, good morning indeed. And there's Andy Darvell saying, "Good morning, Marco, the builder of awesome machines, mainly high ridge, but his tunnel machine that grinds the roof in one pass is awesome. Can't remember what Marco calls it. I can't remember either, but it is a phenomenal machine." And there is Gary Muirhead saying, "I'd love to go to Caterpillar in Malaga." Caterpillar in Malaga, if you're listening, there is a very handsome Scotsman that wants to come pay you a visit. Make it happen, would you? That would be fantastic. Yes, Mystery Machine. We've had a few guesses. Steve Williamson says, "Is it an ADT scraper?" It is not. Andy Darvell says, "Is it a CAT compactor?" It is not. Being more specific, Gary Muirhead says, "Is it a CAT 815F soil compactor?" It is none of those things. It is none of those things. So let me take that away and let me give you a smidgen more. There you are. That's what you're working with. I don't know if that helps at all. But please, if you've got any suggestions on that, please let us know in the chat. And while you're thinking about that, I will press on and play one of these.
If you are enjoying this episode, please consider supporting the show. You can leave us a tip at buymeacoffee.com/demolition news.
So there I was last night. I'd eaten my dinner and my wife had some tripe or other on the TV. So I opened up my laptop and I began idly surfing through YouTube when I came upon the film I'm about to show you. Now, whether this attachment is even available here, no idea. And I'll leave you to decide whether it has a practical application. But this, ladies and gentlemen, is the Blade Buddy. So that right there is your Blade Buddy. What are we saying, people? I know we did have somebody there. Jim Turner says he likes the look of that. Great bit of kit for fetch and carry work. Yeah, very specific application, but I can see the point. I can tell you we've actually had a correct answer on our Mystery Machine, which that was what you were working with. Now, Peter McKenna has come up with a Moxie 6225B. It is not a Moxie at all. Andy Darvell getting closer. Is it an old Cat ADT with a side cab? Gary Muirhead went with, in actual fact, he went with Cat DJB, which is why there is potentially two answers to this question. And he then went even more specific and said the Cat D40D. It is not any of those things. What it actually is precisely what Steve Williamson identified it to be. It is a Cat D25. It's a Cat D25C. And if memory serves me correctly, this was the point where DJB changed its They did away with DJB and it became Caterpillar. And I'm fairly sure that the D25C was a DJB model that then became a Caterpillar model. And just to prove that I'm not winding you up, there it is. There it is. The CAT or DJB D25C, correctly identified by the main man, Steve Williamson. Not just a fantastic operator, not just a fantastic video editor, knows his kit as well. Is there anything he can't do? Mrs. Williamson, I'll leave you to answer that. Now, going back to our Blade Buddy, let me take that off the screen. That Blade Buddy is excellent. Fantastic way to carry material around the site without needing a dumper. Or you could push and carry a smaller dumper load. Very handy. Hot, he says. Well, I was actually expecting it to be dismissed. Goes to show what I know. Jim Turner says, we put a trailer on our mini digger, but this is quicker and easier. There you are. Peter McKenna is actually saying, well done, Steve, on getting the right answer today. And there is one of these where I stay with 2 Ackerman excavators with Encon. Ackerman excavators. Yeah, we need to dig out one of those. As obviously, that won't be tomorrow's mystery machine because that would be far too obvious. But we may bring up an Ackerman at some point in the future. Now, I'll just have one more comment. Bear with me. I think Stevie cheated and used Google search. He may have done. I don't know what you'd search for, bearing in mind that 3/4 of the machine was actually missing. But yes, he may well have done. Google isn't banned, by the way, just so you know. Now, let's have a bit of this, shall we? A week or two ago, we brought you a film featuring a big Liebherr excavator wielding a massive saw blade. Well, the company has now released a follow-up film in which we get a better understanding of the operation from the operator's perspective. So, although I'm probably in breach of copyright saying this, this is Saw 2.
My name is Jake Newman. I'm the site engineer and manager at Bundanon Sandstone Quarry. Some of the features that impressed us in the machine were the low fuel consumption, the productivity in the machine, and the sensitivity of the controls when using the attachments. The Liebherr excavator offers great visibility from the cab. We can also do the pre-start checks from the cab in the machine. It's got cameras on the right-hand side and the rear of the machine, and it comes standard with guardrails and handrails for the operator.
Eddie McGlade, been in the industry for over 30 years, operating for over 30 years as well. Liebherr is a great machine, great controls, everything's good on it. Yeah, no, the joysticks are good, very responsive, and yeah, no, they're all right. Runs the hammer good, runs everything pretty well. It's got everything in there, aircon, radio. No, great machine, very, very good. Very good to operate. Getting up in and out of it too with the steps and that's great. Yeah, well, most of the stuff's in the cab that, like, you check and that, so all you got to do is just turn on isolator switch and a couple of other things and just walk around and make sure that everything's all right.
Yeah, nice positive response on that one. There is Gary Muirhead. Somebody else says this as well. Can you imagine what the HSE would say if we use that in this country? Which is exactly what Steve Williamson said. Imagine safety in the UK if I came along with one of those to cut a road crossing. Good point. Stevie also says, my second favourite excavator. I can only agree with you. Lovely machine, he says. I believe those 945s are an awesome bit of kit. And Ken Hatcher says, simply wow. The thing that amused me about that was the operator, the guy with the bald head there, something about the Australian accent. He was saying all positive things, but sounded really bored while he was doing it. Yeah, it's an awesome machine. Tell your face. Tell your voice. But yes, absolutely awesome machine. Awesome company. Awesome equipment. Liebherr. As one, I don't speak on behalf of our audience, but I think I can speak on this point. Liebherr, we salute you. Now let's have some of this.
Since the finance bill came into effect in April, the construction industry has seen a surge of fuel thefts. The rising cost of living has placed an additional risk of theft by employees and contractors, as well as opportunistic thieves. By using diesel dye and placing warnings of its use, you are sending a clear message that this is your fuel.
Just quickly going to say good morning to Forest City Demolition, whose logo over on Instagram looks remarkably like the West Ham badge that is tattooed on my back. I'm not showing you, but just rest assured, it does look a lot like that. Okay, people, we're about to get all French again. Yes. I was telling Steve Williamson the other night, I have one expression in French, which is stolen from Eddie Izzard, which is le singe est dans l'arbre. The monkey's up the tree. I'm sure that's going to come in dead handy while I'm over in Paris. Now, in a moment, we're going to be looking ahead to see what Dynapac has in store for Intermat 2024. But first, we're going to check in on some very smart French bridge demolition that looks like this. Awesome job. Absolutely fantastic. Now, keep your cheese baguettes and your bicycles and your stripy jumpers handy because we're going to be staying in France right after this. Compaction giant Dynapac will take its place alongside the great and the good of the construction equipment sector in just a few weeks' time. As you're about to see, they plan to shake things up a bit at Intermat 2024.
My name is Eric Booth. I am the product manager for the asphalt rollers for Dynapac. So one of the things that we're showing off this week is a new technology that we're utilizing for the asphalt part of the business. If you're familiar with Dynapac, we have a technology called seismic, and what that does is it automatically detects the vibration frequency of for the drums. We have that currently on our soil rollers. So what that allows people to do out on the job site is reduce their pass count and also save fuel and have less wear and tear on their machines. So if you're in the industry, right? You guys know a lot about asphalt rollers, right? So adding this to the asphalt rollers, what's this going to be able to do? There's a natural resonance frequency of every surface that you're compacting. And what you're doing is we're matching that frequency with the drum to get a more optimal compaction. So instead of just traditionally what double drum rollers would do is you turn it to a low amplitude and you turn it to a high vibration. So what that does is it just goes along the asphalt and hits it hard. What we're doing is we're reading what that frequency, the optimally will work with the drum so the system works together. So what that allows the machine to do is slow down the vibrations there's a very visual and audible sound, or you will not hear. It's not as loud. We get that feedback from our operators, but it works with the system, so you're not over compacting. One of the big things within the industry is if you hit the asphalt too much, you get what's called white capping. So if you ever see asphalt and you see like a chalk in there, what that's doing is it's taking the aggregate, which is a rock, and it's shattering that rock. So that reduces the how dense that your road is going to be. So you don't want that. So that comes from over compaction. So what this will do is it allows the machine to not over compact, but be able to get to your density numbers, which is important for the guys and gals on the job to get to that density number, because they get paid for tonnage, and they get paid for the density, and they get paid for the smoothness of the asphalt. So what this does is it gets to your density numbers in a different way, and by automatically adjusting this frequency. So there are a couple of sensors that are on the machines, and there's a temperature sensor on the front that takes into consideration the temperature of the mat. So really there's not a lot of extra sensors that go into this. It's more smarts with a computer system, and it's an algorithm that adjusts the frequency of your drums to go up and to basically go up and down on the asphalt mats. Any questions about that? When you're not in the industry, it's a little bit tough because when you're not on a job site. So who this really affects is the operators. The operators have a lot more comfort to it because they're not shaking all day, they're not vibrating as hard. And then also the quality control. So if you've ever been on a job site, quality control is a person who's walking behind and uses a nuke gauge to see what the density is. So they're the person that usually tells the operator what kind of system that they're going to be using, what kind of frequency they're going to be using, what kind of vibration, what kind of amplitude that they're going to have, the different settings on the machine. So those are the people that I spend most of my time with. So not only does it help the operator, it saves fuel because when you have less of a vibration, you're using less energy. Less energy, you use less fuel for that. That is more carbon friendly as well in the long run. So saving fuel is more important to your fleet managers. The operator has a better day, and your quality control person is happy at the end of the day because he's getting the density numbers that he's looking for. So currently we have that on our machines it's going to be a standard feature on our 2200, CC 2200 up to 6200. So that's a 59-inch drum up to the 84-inch drum. So those are mainly road and highway size rollers that we have in our portfolios.
Can this be retrofitted onto machines that are already in the field?
It cannot be, right now it cannot be retrofitted, no. There's some sensors inside the drum that needs to be put on there. So we don't have a field kit. They're working on a field kit, but I don't know if that's going to be a version 2.0 or they're going to move on to another, they're going to update the seismic itself to not need those same sensors again.
Will it be available for oscillations on it?
It's not available on the oscillation drum. Our oscillation roller, like this one right here, our CO 6200, it has vibration in the front drum, it has oscillation in the rear drum.
Yeah.
There is seismic, but it's only on the vibrating drum. So it's not currently on the oscillation because that's a different different movement of the drum. So we haven't proven that out yet for the oscillation machines.
It's for direct hitting.
For vibration, straight up and down, yes, sir. Yeah.
Is there technology in development that you're working on something for the oscillating drum?
That it might be more testing with that because when you're hitting straight down, it's reading the frequency that comes right straight back up. Right. When you're moving sideways, you don't get that same type of delivery back. So, because your drum is rolling as it's moving back and forth, so they can't get the same type of frequency back into the sensor right now. And you also don't have some of the core issues when you're vibrating. You don't usually worry about white capping. You're not usually worried about over compacting. Oscillation is doing a little bit more with them smoothing while it's going across the drum or going across the asphalt mat. So we're making that standard on everything that we make for those size classes. So that'll be a standard option that will be available for all the new rollers that are coming over. They're on the water right now, coming our way.
Yeah, good to see my mate Mike Wolf lurking in the background, or lurking in the foreground, should I say. That was him in the brown jacket with the glasses on. Good morning, Mike, if you happen to be watching. Had some comments in on that. I'll come back to the one that really amused me. Jim Turner says, too many vibratory rollers used nowadays. Years ago, roads were usually finished off with a 3-pin, 10-ton dead roller, as it called. They gave a harder and flatter surface, he says. Mick Norton says, Dynapac algorithms controlling vibration and amplitude linked to a pay incentive for operators. Completely crazy. Peter McKenna says, definitely needed in the UK. New roads are sometimes as uneven as old roads. Yeah, we've certainly got a few of those around my part of the world. But here. I've got to admit, I watched that film. I was watching that for the second time, and I was watching Mike Wolf because I've known him for 30 odd years. I wasn't paying particularly close attention this time. I'm going to go back and watch it because Jim Turner says, take the audio and the roller out of the background, and he looks like he's giving a talk about knocking one out. Did he? I'm going to go back and rewatch that in a moment just to see exactly what you're talking about. I'm going to be the first to admit, compaction is one of those bits of the industry that kind of leaves me cold. I've got a vague understanding of how it works with amplitudes and all that. But, you know, even I can see that the Dynapac is pushing the envelope when it comes to compaction levels and controlling that. So, yeah, fair play to them. Maybe catching up with them over in Intermat in just a few weeks' time. And it is just a few weeks' time. This time in 2 weeks, I will actually be there. This will be my first day at the show. So, yeah, keep watching. We're going to come back to the question of the day. I've just seen a comment from Chris Ford, so we'll come back to that in just a moment. So that's just about it for the main part of the show today. I'm going to roll the outro in just a second before leaping gazelle-like over into the chat to see what you're all saying today. If you can't stick around, please stay safe. Look after yourself, your family, your friends, and your colleagues. I hope to see you again very, very soon. Maybe tomorrow. Haven't seen William Sitwell over on Instagram today. He obviously got all that he needed yesterday. Or just stumbled across us by accident yesterday. But if you do have the time and the inclination, please do stick around. I'll be back with the Craic immediately after the final point from our key show sponsor. The Craic will have no music today because it's playing up. But we'll be back in just a moment. I'm supposed to do Arnie around about now, aren't I? Let's do Arnie first.
I'll be back.
Yes, I will be back immediately after this. Now, before we go any further, the question of the day, Peter McKenna, who was just asked, he missed that bit. It is sweet or savoury? Quite simply that. It is sweet or savoury. And just in case anybody else arrived late, do you prefer sweet or savoury? There it is, right there in the chat. Let me go back to the very beginning. There you are. Now, I've made a mistake, and I owe Andy Dalville an apology. Because he arrived before I started, that was at 9:58. I saw that, and I immediately thought it was our man, Dan Cullen. Demo Dove, Andy Dalville says, morning. 12 days left working at Mick George. Very excited, yes, because he is off to AR Demolition. So my apologies for sending you a message calling you Dan. That was a complete... Listen, 2 minutes before I go live... Here is chaos. I'm going through checking buttons and making sure, so my apologies. But yes, 12 days and counting. In actual fact, 12 days. That's, I mean, you arrive at AR Demolition pretty much as I arrive in Paris. So exciting times all round. Looking forward to hearing all the goss from up at AR Demolition. Fantastic company. You are very lucky to be joining them, but they are very lucky to have you. Gary Muirhead is in the house as well. Good morning, Mark. Good morning, everyone. Indeed, Mick Norton is here. Chris Ford is here. And our friend Wolf Welder is also here because I think the American... timeline has kind of caught up with us, or we've caught up with him one way or another. We were coming on very, very early before, or maybe he's just now on a different schedule. There is Gary saying good morning to our man, the former king of all things steel wrist, Pat, but I haven't seen him in the chat, but if he's here, good morning to him. Good morning to Mark Whiting and to Jim Turner as well. There is our question of the day. Do you prefer sweet or savoury? As I said in the very beginning, I would happily, very, very happily forego proper food and replace it with chocolate. I am a fiend. Now that I've been diagnosed with diabetes, I have to be very, very careful. But I was a regular consumer of a couple of chocolate bars on every journey over about 5 miles. Driving up the motorway, I'll get myself a Twix and maybe a Snickers as well. But I'll save that for later, and I'd go about another 10 miles and realise both were gone. So yes, I am definitely in the sweet category. Andy Darvell is with me 100% in the sweet category. Who else do we have here? There is Steve Williamson saying good morning all, and he has got some Scottish weather. Jim Turner is a savoury man, not an unsavoury man. He is a savoury man. Good morning, Jim. Wolfwelder says, I love my sweet stuff, but I think I prefer savoury. Question of the day, Steve Williamson is going savoury. Sweet is maybe if I'm still hungry. I get to talk about these questions of the day the night before I air them. So I try them out on the family, basically. My wife is most definitely savoury. Fred kind of sits on the fence, but the analogy he drew yesterday was rather, if you're a bit peckish, do you reach for crisps? And Wolfwelder, that means chips to you. Do you reach for crisps or do you reach for biscuits? And Wolfwelder, that means cookies. We speak a vaguely similar language, but yeah, are you a chips and cookie, or are chips or cookie, or are you crisps or biscuits? I think I've got that right. Anybody else got any takes on that? I'd love to hear from you. Ken Hatcher is in the house, and he also says he's a sweet man. Now, you surprised me at that, Ken, because I know your love of pizza. I was expecting you to be a savoury kind of guy. You live and learn. Yes, good to see Marco Lorini actually tuning into the show. He does, in fairness to him, he does do quite a bit over on LinkedIn and says some nice things about what we do here. But good to see him over on Instagram. And Garvin over at Mostly Diggers, who I'll be seeing about 2 and a bit weeks' time over in Paris. Looking forward to catching up with him. I don't know if Steve Williamson and Garvin have actually met before, but I hope they do this time, because I think you guys would get along very, very well. Plenty of guesses on our mystery machine, which, as we know, proved to be that. That is a CAT or a DJB D25C. I would have taken either answer, but that's what it is. And Garvin has just said morning, or good morning to you, my friend. Thank you for being here. Gary Muirhead. Now, Gary Muirhead, I half suspected was a sweet man, but bearing in mind his love of haggis, which is admirable. I don't blame him at all, because it is nectar of the gods. I was half expecting him to be a little bit more savoury, but who the hell knows? I've just had a message from... I haven't had a message. It's a WhatsApp message. Al Grierson, not on the show, but he is talking about machines over in our WhatsApp group. And if you haven't joined our WhatsApp group, you're missing out. Andy W says, good morning, Marco. The builder of some awesome machines, mainly high reach, but his tunnel machine that grinds the roof in one pass is awesome. Can't remember what Marco calls it. Neither can I. These were the guesses that we had initially on our mystery machine. There you are. Would love to go to Cat Malaga. It is. I think I've probably blotted my copybook, and it's unlikely that I'll be invited back. Not for anything I did in Malaga, I hasten to add. But it is, I remain a great admirer of all things Caterpillar. Speaking of which, and this is very, very early days, and I do need to check my notes. Bear with me for 1 second. Bear with me. Note for your diary, the 19th of June. I realise it's a long way off, but the 19th of June, so the week before Hillhead, we will have a very special guest on the show. And we're going to do an evening show on a Wednesday evening on the 19th of June. And that guest is going to be Gilles Aronnet. Those of you that saw Gilles before will know. Well, I think we've had a lot of fantastic guests on our daytime shows and on our evening shows. But I think there are two absolute standouts. I would say that Tim Burnhope at JCB has been one of those, and Gilles has been the other. And he's coming back. So we've got lots and lots to talk about. We've got a new Caterpillar film coming, but we're also going to keep him on to talk about some straight boom excavators, rotary cutters, pulverizers, quick couplers. We're going to have Gilles for about an hour. So I'm expecting lots and lots and lots of questions. And I expect Gilles, because we know him as we do, I expect to get some very, very good answers out of him. So the 19th of June, mark that in your diary. Be there or be square, as they say. We gradually whittled down to exactly what our mystery machine was going to be. There was Gary. Gary, in actual fact, I think Gary was the first to recognise exactly what type of machine it was, the Cat DJB. And then obviously we had a fair few people slowly whittling it down to the point that we got to there, which was the winning entry. That is Steve Williamson saying it is correctly Cat D25C ADT or a DJB, depending how you look at it. Now, as I say, the Blade Buddy that I featured earlier on, and we've got another funny attachment for you tomorrow, but this one, when I first discovered it, I actually thought, yeah, they'll be vaguely amused by that. I'll show that to them. Vaguely amused doesn't even begin to cover it. Sounds like we've got a few Blade Buddy fans. Now that Blade Buddy is excellent, fantastic way to carry material around the site without needing a dumper, or you could push and carry a smaller dumper load. Very handy. Hot, he says. Jim Turner is in agreement. Great bit of kit for fetch and carry work. Yeah, totally agree. Let's have a look. Now, we got on to the Liebherr. I think it was the 954. Conquip, good morning to you, who've just joined us over on Instagram. Ken Hatcher said, wow. I find myself saying wow whenever I see a Liebherr excavator, if I'm being completely honest. Steve Williamson was the first to say, imagine the safety in the UK if I came along with one of those to cut a road crossing. Yes, I think you may have some questions to answer on that. Peter McKenna says, I believe those 945s are an awesome bit of kit. They're not paying me to say this, so take this just purely as my own personal opinion. Have you ever seen a Liebherr excavator and gone, I don't think anyone has. I think they basically specialise in awesomeness. Just saying. Lovely machine, says Steve Williamson. Now, bear in mind, Steve is a huge Volvo fan, but even he grudgingly admits that the Liebherr is an awesome piece of kit. Can you imagine what the HSC would say if we used that in this country? And I take your point. I do take your point. And I know Steve mentioned specifically cutting a road crossing, but why should that be an issue? If you're using it in a quarry, it's facing a quarry face. So even if there is some absolutely unexpected catastrophic failure and the thing flies off, it's only going away from folks. Is that a big deal? Is that a big deal? Oh, just thought I'd ask. Kappa Group have just joined us over on Instagram as well. Yeah, fantastic people over on Instagram today. Steve Williamson saying it's his second favourite excavator. I do want to let you know, just very, very quickly, a Shoma Tech, bless up, they say over on Instagram. I don't know what that means, but back at you, possibly. Been reading this morning on, I've got a mate called Matt Malloy, who runs the Refurb and Retrofit website. And he has come across a study that reckons about half of the UK's local authorities are on the verge of bankruptcy. So if you are, I'm going to be writing about this a bit later in the day, but if you are in the business, or if you're in a business whereby you are working directly or indirectly for local authorities in the UK, be aware. Be aware. I mean, they've already got some pretty good excuses about not spending money, carbon emissions, embodied carbon and all that kind of thing. That's already a stumbling block. But if they've got no money to spend, and I realise local authorities don't work like private individuals and companies. I mean, Birmingham Council is effectively insolvent, but it carries on because it can. However, you'd have to think, once a report goes in that says a certain council has been declared insolvent, they will be watching exactly what they spend down to the last penny, you would imagine. So if you are in a business, as I say, if you're in a business that is relying upon work from local authorities, just be careful out there, people, would you? Our friend Mick says, morning all, and what a bloody miserable day. Yeah, I woke up this morning, looked out the window, it looked fine, took the dogs out, soaking wet. You're right. Ashoma Tech, I don't know where they are, but they're saying, how is business going? My business is going great guns, thank you very much. I did mention this on LinkedIn last night. I don't know what the hell happened yesterday. I came off the show yesterday about 11:30. I think I'd finished doing all the various bits and pieces by about 12:30, and I was literally on the phone for the entire day. And it wasn't me making phone calls, all incoming, and none of them. That was the most remarkable thing. None of them were to tell me something I'd done wrong, where I'd overstepped the mark, how I was a disgrace to the industry. I'm aware of all of those things. None of it, just, calls for a chat, calls with positive feedback, calls with updates and stuff like that. Yeah, it was quite the day. I was quite glad when the day was over, actually. At 9:30 last night, my phone switched into do not disturb mode, which it does automatically every evening. And I was grateful of the peace, have to say. Let's have a look. Peter McKenna with an update. The demolition of the Leaning Tower in Taiwan is coming along now. I do need to go and check back on that, I have to say. I was interested by the project because it was very, very challenging, obviously, but I do need to go and check back. So thank you for the update on that, Peter. I'll go and have a look at that. Jim Turner with the comment of the day. Take the audio and roller out of the background. He looks like he's giving a talk about knocking one out. Has anyone ever done that? Has anyone ever actually given a talk about knocking one out? I'm not sure I'd want to attend a talk like that, if I'm honest. I mean, I think I've got it figured out anyway, so, why would I? This is all related to Dynapac, definitely needed in the UK. New roads are sometimes as uneven as old roads. Yeah, they certainly are. In actual fact, I drove over a road the other day. When I moved into not this house, but the house before, it was a new development, so there were new roads leading to it and everything else. And at the time, they were like the proverbial baby's bottom, smooth as silk. And here we are just a decade or so later, and they are awful. I mean, like literally third world country type roads. No, obviously, demonstrably there has been no maintenance going on, but they must have been very, very poorly built in the first place. Dynapac, says McNaughton, algorithms controlling vibration and amplitude linked to a pay incentive for operators. Completely crazy. Not sure I buy into that whole idea of pay incentives, but obviously there has been a lot of talk about the companies that build infrastructure, be it road, rail, or whatever it might be, having a long-term responsibility for those projects. I mean, for example, I realise this is an extreme example, but the Dartford Bridge was done by a private enterprise. They have been paid way too much money because they basically take the toll payments and have been doing so for what is it, 30 odd years now. But they are basically responsible for the lifetime of that bridge. I realise that's coming in roads as well, and I don't actually have an issue with that. So, if you could go back and say you can clearly demonstrate that the compaction was up to scratch when you first did it, obviously that's going to be a great defence. Whether that should be linked to operators' pay, not so convinced, but I see where they're coming from. Jim Turner says, too many vibratory rollers used nowadays. Years ago, roads would usually finish off with a 3-pin, 10-ton dead roller, as it called. That gave a harder and flatter surface. I can't actually remember the last time I saw one of those big deadweight rollers. I've mentioned before, I did actually do the PR for Aveling Barford when their final coming, the third act in the long life of Aveling Barford. Aveling Barford started as a standalone company. It was then bought by the company, or the same company that owned British Leyland. It died in both of those occasions, and then it came back and had another go, brought back some of their old products, like the deadweight roller, like the rigid dump truck. It then launched the Barford site dumpers, which is why I was there mainly, and then it died again. But yeah, those deadweight rollers, sold a few here in the UK, but sold them literally around the world. Can't remember the last time I saw one. Maybe I'm not looking hard enough. Going back to our question of the day, Chris Ford says, definitely a sweet tooth, although I'm not adverse to savoury. No, I mean, if push came to shove, I would choose sweet all day long, but I kind of like to have the mix, if you know what I mean. Should have bought my ex one of those vibrator machines instead of treating her to an Ann Summers catalogue. So you know that and I don't listen, being not of the female persuasion, you know that whole deal about women idling the afternoon away sat on their washing machine. I don't know if that's real or if that's a complete myth. I don't know whether that's something that's been invented purely for slightly less than savoury Hollywood movies. What about a vibratory roller? Do you get the same, what's the word I'm looking for, buzz? Listen, I'm about to make a sexist comment, but what the hell? Would that attract more women into the industry? The promise of, I don't know. We came back to the question of the day. There you are, Peter McKenna. Do you prefer sweet or savoury? Peter then said, the weather here is atrocious. Sites laying off for the day, left and right centre. So I'm going to go and have to pick my son up. Hope you will have a good day. Thank you very much indeed, Peter. And you too, my friend. I can picture the old Irish blacktop Freeman's response to an operator telling him he would get a better compaction result on an algorithm. Yes, I think that would be a 2-word discussion, and the second word would probably be off rather. Peter McKenna came and went. There you are. No, we've done that one. Peter McKenna, sweet tooth, and it shows. Lost most of my teeth because of my habit. Only 6 teeth left in my mouth. Well, I'm gradually whittling down the number that I've got, and I'm blaming exactly the same thing. Mick says, question of the day, due to type 2 and a niggling ulcer, my taste no longer matters. All very bland now. That must be awful. I mean, I realise there are worse things to be afflicted by, but food is one of my great pleasures. It really is. And, I make no secret of the fact I'm off to Italy in May, 10th of May. I'm off with my other half for our wedding anniversary. We missed the last time we were supposed to be going on our wedding anniversary. We were supposed to be going to Venice. COVID overtook. So we've been waiting, but we're going to Bergamo. And I'm going to Bergamo because it's beautiful. It is lovely, but I'm going predominantly because the food is awesome. Surprisingly enough, despite all that I said earlier, very little in the way of sweet I'll be eating. I'll be eating mainly pasta and pizza. Peter McKenna says, when travelling, I always have a Yorkie and a bottle of milk. If the fatigue kicks in, small amounts of each is a good pick-me-up. I used to do that. When I first started on Contract Journal, not the Yorkie bar, but there was a CAF. I know it's spelt C-A-F-E, but this was a C-A-F-F, a CAF just around the corner from our old offices over in Wallington in Surrey. And my go-to of a lunchtime, lots of people used to go to the pub, and I was a drinker back then, but lots of people used to go to the pub, but I skipped that. There was somewhere to go for Italian food, and there was a pizza place and everything else. But my go-to, go around the corner to the CAF, fried egg sandwich, glass of milk. To this day, still a fan, still occasionally have a glass of milk. Mick Norton says, I was in my youth once described as unsavoury. I don't believe that. Fine, upstanding gentleman like yourself. Don't believe that for a moment. Marco's tunnel machine is called the Joker. Is it? Is it? It's a great name. Well, it is a great name. Just to be absolutely clear here, we've talked about sweet and savoury. I'm going to now talk about Marvel and DC. I always come down on the Marvel side, although I do believe DC has the greatest villain of all time, the Joker. What a fantastic... But Jack Nicholson's Joker, good. Heath Ledger's Joker, even better. Joaquin Phoenix's Joker, probably the best of the lot. And then Jared Leto, spoiling things by being a bit of a turd. Just saying. Jared, if you're watching, sorry. Mick Norton says, nationally there are 188 council workers who have salaries higher than the Prime Minister's 165 grand. Is that right? Well, my question, first of all, is that right? As in, is that correct? And my second question is that right? Should that be allowed? Should the head of a council be earning more than the bloke that claims to run the country? Never had a talk about how to knock one out. Best to just do it free hands, says Jim Turner. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Maybe that's why your washing machine is broke. Well, it's fixing it. But no, it's not actually. It's being fixed this week, funnily enough. Maybe that is. Maybe it's just wear and tear. I could talk about this at the moment because she's not here. Let's have a look. Ask your average MPAWS or CPCS roller operator to state the difference between amplitude and vibration, and they will be stumped. It's a subject that is often skirted over by training providers. Listen, I mean, I consider myself to be not intelligent by any means. Shit, if I was intelligent, I wouldn't be doing this for a living, would I? But I consider myself to be smart and enough. But compaction, because it is a science, it is just on the very edge of my understanding. Excuse me. Mick Norton says the success or failure of a road construction often lies with the proficiency of the roller operator. Yeah, and bizarrely, it's one of those weird things. One of the things that I did learn, having covered compaction for as long as I have, is there is an optimum level of compaction. It might be 3 passes, 4 passes, whatever it might be. But you reach that optimum, and anything over that optimum actually starts to deteriorate all your hard work. So if it is requiring 4 passes and you give it 5, you've actually caused damage. So, all of that tech that's feeding information back into a screen to say enough, don't go over that bit anymore. I'm all for that. And maybe, given that what Mick has just said given the fact that it is a science, it is not the easiest thing to understand, then maybe that's why tech is taking such a grip over in the compaction market. Maybe. Now, today I am going to end the show, and then I want to shut down everything. I'm going to make everything go away for a little while, because when I come back tomorrow, I do want to be able to play music in the background. This sounds awfully weird. I'm basically listening to me. I don't know how you put up with it, because I sound like I'm droning on and on, but I'm going to restart the system so that I can actually get some music in the background for you tomorrow, liven things up a little bit. So please join me again tomorrow when we may well have some music for you. I've just had a comment over on LinkedIn. Is that related to this? I wonder. No, it doesn't appear to be, which is good. Jim Turner has just said, what has he said? He said, small vibratory rollers are all right when it's hot, but not heavy enough to dead roll as it's cooling. That's why we have bumpy, soft tarmac. Bumpy, soft tarmac. Yes, indeed. Everybody, that is basically an hour. So go forth, get out of the rain. Go and tuck yourself up with some chocolate or something a little more savoury, depending on your taste buds. And I'll be back tomorrow at 10 a.m. for more of this, only accompanied by some background music, hopefully. Till then, everybody, have a fantastic day. Thanks for your company. Thanks for all your input. Thanks for being here, just in general, because I do enjoy your company. I'll see you all tomorrow. All the best.